Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to VHS Showdown!
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Where we trawl through all the 80s classics, not so classics, and hidden gems. This week's film was picked by Lee, and what year were you giving, Lee?
1988.
Strong, yes.
Heading towards the 90s there,
Closer.
as time progresses.
A couple of years off.
Yes, two I believe. So what film did you go for, Lee?
ELVIRA, Mistress of the Dark.
Ooh.
I'm sure like most people of our age probably know who Elvira is, but what was everyone's experience of this film? Had anyone seen it before?
I knew that the boob lady on The Simpsons was based on somebody, but other than that, never seen the film, didn't know what she was about, anything.
What about yourself, Al?
Heard of Elvira, seen snippets of her TV shows, but never really taken too much of an interest in it.
I have a memory of the VHS cover, and that's it. So obviously I knew who Elvira was just from being aware of pop culture and saw the cover as a kid, but that was my only real knowledge of her.
What drew you to the front cover?
Two things. The art and the font.
A wonderful font.
It was, yes. So Lee, what about you?
Well, I've never seen it either. When I was growing up on a Sunday, my old man used to bang on the floor for me to make him breakfast. So he's taking breakfast up, and he used to go fucking mad because I always fucked it up. So he used to like fucking.
Like step to himself.
He used to chuck it across the room. So what I used to do, I used to get up before he woke up, and I used to go out, and I used to go down the video shop, and I used to just sit and look at all the covers of the horror films. And this was one of those. Obviously, being a bit little, I used to enjoy looking at the cover of this one, and I didn't quite know why.
Cool. We've all watched it, as hopefully you at home have as well. So let's give a bit of context to who Elvira is. In America, when they used to broadcast horror movies on TV, they had a bit of a tradition of having a horror host. Originally, or maybe Vincent Price might have done it, and like they've had other...
Vampira was...
Well, that's it. Interesting. Vampira was the one in the 50s. This guy found this model. She was really like beautiful, and they wanted somebody to host the horror films, and they got her, and she did this whole look based off Morticia Addams. And if you look at her, she is like the 50s version of Elvira, so much that she actually sued Elvira.
They tried to, didn't they?
Yeah, she tried to, but Elvira won the case. So they used to have horror hosts, and they used to introduce the movie, things like that, like Tales from the Crypt. So basically, in the 80s, somebody was trying to relaunch this whole idea of having a horror host. So they hired this woman, Cassandra Peterson, who started off as a showgirl and then got into comedy and improvisations, and she got spotted basically and was given this job to come up with a character. Came up with Elvira, introduced horror movies on TV in the 80s, and she got really, really popular, became a bit of a cult thing, and then from that, they decided to make a movie in 1988.
So it starts off, she's doing that job. She's introducing horror films and what have you.
That horror film she was introducing, I thought it was a thing again.
Well, I wondered if that was a real one, actually. I made a note to go and look it up.
It's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes later in the film,
Yeah.
so I bet it is a real film.
Maybe.
And that was from the same studio that did Elvira as well, wasn't it?
Was it?
Was it, yeah, New World Pictures. Did like Chud, Hellraiser.
Chud.
Oh, wow.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Because originally it was supposed to be Tim Burton directing it.
She wanted Tim Burton, didn't she?
He was doing Beetlejuice
Yeah.
then.
I would love to have seen what he would have done with this.
It would have been a lot better.
It really would.
It would have benefited.
Yes.
Could have brought something to the table.
So she's introducing these horror films, and then the guy who owns the studio or something comes in and then starts grabbing her tits, bizarrely. It's like shocking.
He had a mighty big hat.
He did.
He did have a good
He had a
hat,
10-gallon hat.
He did.
Which was quite bizarre, because he did literally just grab her tit. There was nothing, he just grabbed her tit.
Yeah, well, it turns out he was a new station owner, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then he went up and got a handful, but then she let him have it and took him off his feet. But when he got up, he said, "But you said she was a nympho."
The opening line of the whole film is her making an innuendo about her tits.
A gal with the enormous ratings.
Yeah.
That's ongoing.
Yeah, I know, but what I mean is like the first line of the film is just something to do with her tits, and like it sets the bar pretty low for the entire film.
There's a bit of a film they're showing where like somebody's putting a sausage in between a taco. Yeah. And it falls out and it just sausage lands between this woman's tits, and it's like, okay, this is where we're going.
The thing we've got to talk about first of all, just get out of the way, is obviously Elvira's tits. She has the most phenomenal pair.
And she knows that. She's made a career out of it.
Yes, they are like better than Jamie Lee Curtis's.
Has she done pictures with a mouth out?
Elvira?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right.
So I accidentally stumbled across this on my research.
Did you come across it, did you?
I did. It's available online. When she was a lot younger, she did a shoot for this married couple or something. And anyway, when she got famous, they sold the pictures to like Penthouse and all that sort of stuff.
She did a photo shoot for a married couple.
Yeah,
they promised her they'd never show anybody the photos or some shit, and then when she got a bit famous, they released.
I mean, what are they getting out of that? I mean, that's a weird sort of thing to propose to someone, really.
No,
Can I take some
it's-
pictures of you just to keep?
with my wife, like me and my wife. It's not weird, we won't give them away.
I did get mixed messages from this film because, like you said, Al, from the beginning, it's set up very clearly that this woman is using her boobs to sort of get all the stuff she wants. But yet, throughout the film, there's this real, very early girl power kind of thing about her.
Well, that's the thing. She's quite a feminist icon, really, because it is about her tits, but she doesn't put up with any shit from anyone. And she references. She's like, "Oh, no, I'm not just a great set of tits. I've got a great set of legs too." And that was like one of the funniest lines I thought in the film. She's really sort of comfortable with her sexuality, isn't she?
Yeah, she started off as a stripper in Vegas, didn't she? So I would imagine the sort of industry that she is in, she would be used to that sort of surroundings. Do you know what I mean? I suppose she
probably quite tame for her.
It's bizarre because like I find it really difficult to try and figure out what it was. I didn't know whether or not it was supposed to be a comedy, but I don't know, it was very weird.
I find the first half was really, really confused like that, and I was a bit like, I'm not really enjoying it. But from the second half, I really did enjoy it. It starts getting a bit of momentum.
Once they started actually sort of like addressing a storyline, because to be fair, it
was like a sketch show.
It was, wasn't it? It felt like a load of like different sketches, but no sort of plot moving on. Like
a lot of it was blokes cracking onto her and her asserting herself.
Yeah.
The thing is, a lot of them weren't even cracking onto her. They were like physically grabbing her.
I mean, the mechanic's babbling to himself, and then she's like walking away from him and just looks back and says, "Nice dudes."
That was the funniest.
That was She blew him up. In the fucking garage.
Oh yeah, she blew a bloke up at the garage, but the guy who says nice tits is later on when she gets to the town. There wasn't anybody there to see it, was it? You know, did she do it? He was smoking on a forecourt. He had it coming.
I mean, she blew him up, though.
Not on purpose.
Not yet. She accidentally murdered him, like right in the beginning.
I don't know if it was accident, because she did say before she left, "Those will kill you."
I think the most problematic thing with these 80s films is just the way that women are courted. In the 80s movies we've seen so far doing this podcast, if you want to attract a lady for a date or whatever, there's two ways. You either stare at them, like from a distance for like ages, or you physically grab them. And that's the only two ways we've really sort of seen. So that hasn't aged well.
It is strange actually watching a lot of these films back and just seeing the way that it has altered, because most of the stuff that we've watched, you probably couldn't get away with a lot of it these days. Even Elvira, I don't even think you could get away with making that now.
I think you could make it. I just think it'd be like you would have your.
It would be a lot tamer.
It's a bit sexist, but it is a bit feminist, and she's quite a powerful female character at the same time, and she does put these blokes in their place. So I think it does actually. It's aged not too bad because of that, because of the fact that she does stand up for herself.
There's a bit when this happened, I was like, all right, this feels like Footloose. This hero arrives in town who's going to bring fun back. You know, fun has been banned. Nobody's up for it. But there's a couple of like lads all trying to get up and take photos of her and everything. But then there's a bit where they're all helping her do her house up, and it's actually like quite wholesome. Nobody's leering over her. Nobody's doing anything. I think a couple of lads actually paid to come and help, which is for obvious perks. So it's given this really sort of innocent feel. Like some girl turns up, she's like, "Come on in, honey."
That innocence sort of goes when she's bent over and she tells the two lads to grab their tool and start banging.
So it's quite on the nose.
It builds up this thought and it cheapens the whole thing.
So that bloke grabs her tits. She
It's the first 5 minutes of the film.
she ends up getting fired from the studio.
You're fired.
Yeah,
because she's not having it. But she needs to save up for this Vegas show that she's got booked. So then she finds out that her auntie has died, and then she's got to go and listen to the will being read. And then that's sort of the opening credits, isn't it? But did anyone else feel like the opening credits was a bit like Dusk Till Dawn? It was like a road trippy, and it was like some cool music. And
it was a bit like Dusk Till Dawn in the way that it literally it's halfway through before anything supernatural happens. And because I'd never seen it, I assumed, seeing a video cover and knowing I know of Elvira, that the whole thing was going to be supernatural. But it was like this weird sort of screwball road trip comedy at the beginning with the heartwarming like village, and then you go into supernatural comedy, and but that's when it got way better, I thought.
It did. I was worried that with a name like Elvira and Mistress of the Dark, I was like, Christ, she's killing vampires or something. That's what I was.
That would have been good.
I've just watched Buffy recently, actually, the old one, 93 one, so I'm done my
You're vampired up.
Yeah, I'm good. But that's what I was expecting, and I was quite pleasantly surprised it wasn't. But again, I was left kind of waiting to see what it was.
So she ends up going to this town, and her car breaks down, and she's helped out, and the lady from Trains, Planes and Automobiles is there.
She's the one from Ferris Bueller, isn't she?
Fucking hell. Because I've never seen this film before. I think it was in the Ferris Bueller episode, and I talked about her, and I mentioned how she always plays the woman in curlers. And fuck me, if she didn't turn up in a pair of curlers, I was like, holy shit.
She knows the lady who plays Elvira because they were in the improv group together. So that's where they kind of knew each other, I think.
So Elvira did do improv?
She came up with this character, which was like a Californian bimbo sort of character, and then they just put that into Elvira's outfit.
Like, there's a lot of amazing female actresses out there, but there's something about her that I've only seen a few times. I can't put it to mind, but you can tell that she's a stand-up or into improv because she's very confident, but she also comes across like she does facial expressions. She knows what she's going to do.
But then you find her that funny? Because I didn't to start with, but she actually grew on me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
The way she portrays the character. She's got these real cheesy sort of hammy one-liners.
How's your head?
I haven't had any complaints yet.
But I find it a bit like, oh, she's not very good. But now actually I started to like her character more as it went on.
It's like that grab a tool and start banging. Was that new? Did they know how obvious that was? So is it like really clever or is it really crap?
The only way that I could liken it to anything was a carry-on film. But only because of like...
I actually thought that Edie McClurg was very matron-esque in that.
The acting is terrible.
It is. It's awful.
And she is not funny. But it's really weird because it was terrible to begin with, then it got a little bit better, and then I just was left with like, I don't know whether or not this is good or terrible. I can't figure it out.
I felt like when I was a kid watching the latest film and not realising that it was shit, just wondering what it was that was going on. Yeah. That's what it felt like, that whole film.
It's like growing up and realising, hang on, this shit doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, effectively what the whole film was about was kind of acceptance, and it's kind of got a point.
It's got an arc.
Sort of.
So anyway, she comes to town. There's a lot of people that don't like her because it's like a well-to-do community, but obviously all the lads are chasing after her. And then she goes to a bar, and then two blokes start grabbing her tits and stuff again. And this guy who's like a real 80s stud, who's working behind
He is a stud, isn't he?
He is. He works on a farm, surely. He's slinging hay bales and shit. And
he's slinging dick is what he's slinging, mate.
He had the same sort of look as the bloke from Liar Liar who's banging the...
He's Woody Harrelson's dad in Kingpin.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
It took me ages to get that.
If you built a computer AI and said, could you draw a real buff bloke from the 80s?
He just stood.
Real buff, working class, blue collar.
He's a real spunk.
He is.
He looks like one of the characters from Small Soldiers has come to life.
He does.
He's like the most chiselled face I've ever seen or something.
But it would take quite the man to tame Elvira, wouldn't it? She wouldn't be interested in any of the chumps in this podcast.
They said what they wanted to do with him was make him like a dumb blonde would be in a normal film, but like a bloke version. So that was what his that's what his character was.
Yeah. Did you know that Brad Pitt originally auditioned?
Yeah.
He was going to be one of the kids that helped fix her house, and she saw him in the audition. She wrote like yum yum on his audition sheet, but she said, look, he can't be in it because he's too good looking, and if he was one of these kids, Elvira wouldn't be interested in old 80s stud man anymore. She would just be interested in Brad Pitt.
He's too handsome.
Jesus
Christ.
But
were you ever turned down for any roles for being too handsome?
Well, I think that's why I didn't get anywhere. Right?
That's why he didn't put him on Hollyoaks.
Yeah, avert your eyes from my beauty. So yeah, but interestingly, Brad Pitt years later bought Elvira's LA mansion off her. It's a gothic LA mansion that's haunted as well.
Is it?
Apparently
Is it, mate?
Well, fair play to her though for like living that role. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And buying like some big gothic mansion. They're probably all worshipping Baphomet or something in Hollywood.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Everybody has to have a hobby.
Yeah. Just on a gothic house. You would have thought that house that she inherited would be right up her street.
Well, I think that was the joke, wasn't it?
But then she turned it into a...
Well, she didn't. Somehow, do you remember like the big reveal of it being multicoloured? She had her eyes covered, so it was like she didn't know what was going on. And it looked shit, by the way.
You just wouldn't paint it.
She loved it, but it looked shit.
I think that's the weirdest thing about her, isn't it? She doesn't quite fit the way that she looks. And I know she is like this icon who's introduced lots of horror films, and that is sort of the stick, that she's not like, blah, 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 I want to drink your blood, that she is like, oh yeah, you know, a bit more sort of bimbo-ish.
Like you said in the beginning, she's actually slagging off the film and talking about how bad it is, so she's clearly like not there to mince her words, but it's kind of like you think, well, what's your purpose? Like, you know, and she is being a bit of a sex object at the time, isn't she?
A sex object? Like a dildo.
Like a fleshlight. So yeah, she goes to the reading of the will. She has inherited her auntie's house and her auntie's poodle and some recipe book that her uncle really wanted. He's in cahoots with these blokes grabbing tits all over the place, isn't he? The manhandlers.
So is this the bad guy?
Yeah, her uncle, the bad guy.
He was way better than he needed to be in
He's
this
got a
film.
fucking glass eye, hasn't he?
He has got a glass eye.
At the end, I was like, is he doing something freaky with his eye? Because only one turn.
Uncle had glass eye? Question mark. I'm glad somebody else noticed.
But does he have magic eyes? Because I thought he was trying to hypnotise Elvira, the fucking Ferris Bueller lady. I thought he was doing like a fucking stare at him and trying to hypnotise her.
He was the only one in the film not playing it for laughs.
A proper thesp,
I think
he must have been a proper thesp.
I think he thought it was a serious film. If you ever watch it again, he is playing it completely straight, and I thought he was great.
It does actually
good.
work.
It does,
He is like the straight man in this massive joke.
As soon as they introduced him and it got into all this stuff we're about to get to, this is where I thought, actually, this film's class, and I really started enjoying it. First half was just weird and like shit, but the second half was like, oh man, this is good.
Then she shaves and dyes her poodle. and the poodle hides the book under the sofa. So she's going to bed, and then you have some more shenanigans with some guys peeping through the window trying to get a picture of her bangers.
I was also going to say, it's a good job that dog was magic. When they opened the door and it just came running down the stairs looking nice and healthy, I was like, how long's that fucker been living in here on his own?
One bit I laughed out loud at was when you saw the shadow of the dog and it was a Rottweiler. And then when it came downstairs, it was a poodle. But I didn't think it was a matter. I thought they were doing like a Simpsons gag, like setting you up to think it's a Rottweiler, and then it's a poodle. And then in hindsight, it's because it's a magic dog, isn't it?
She dressed that poodle up like some sort of leather-clad
punk rocker.
Yeah, he had like a leather.
He looked like fucking Rude Dog. Rude Dog and the Dweebs.
He did. Yeah.
What a show.
Just step back a minute. You know the hotel that she's staying in initially with the daughter there that they don't want the daughter to hang around with? Do you recognise who the husband was?
Yeah.
The husband in the hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, the old guy.
He's the shoeshine boy from Naked Gun.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I was
And
like,
also,
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
It's the peculiar guy.
Peculiar. So anyway, she has this situation with these peeping toms and then goes to bed, and then she has a dream about a ghost of her auntie in her house. Then it cuts to the townsfolk who are having like a committee about how to get rid of her, and one of the guys is the fucking mayor's advisor in Ghostbusters 2.
Yes. He's also in something else.
Wayne's
as well.
World.
Wayne's World, that's it. He's another
He
one in the
cooks.
sort of Walter Peck.
He's a poor man's Walter Peck.
They should.
really.
Oh, shame they didn't do a film, but just like all those 80s assholes together.
Kurt Fuller was his name.
Is that the one? Is it?
I was thinking, as like Wayne's World was what, 92? I mean, and the fact does he still look identical? But I suppose he's only 5 years in it.
But that is the benefit of going bold young, though, isn't it? Because then if you go bold young, you just remain looking the same age. Look like Patrick Stewart or Ryan Tarber.
Well, I'm just going to tell you a quick fact about Patrick Stewart is that obviously in England we say data, in America they say data. But the character Data on Star Trek, he called him Data because he was English, and it led to a lot of Americans changing the way they said data to data because they thought that's how it was pronounced. Because Patrick Stewart.
There's hope for aluminium yet.
Yeah. So there goes a little fact.
A little factoid from something else. An unrelated article.
Within about a headline.
Yes.
So on
William
the story.
Jewell, the guy.
That's right.
The motel guy. Or Jewel.
But
I'm not sure.
but his actual name is Darwin. He didn't like William is his middle name. So there's another little fact for you.
That is obscure.
It is.
As fuck.
Okay, so she is like not getting anywhere in the town. And then there's the other weird thing is obviously you've got the woman from Planes, Trains and Automobiles is kind of like one of the ringleaders, but the other ringleader is this woman who is like seemingly got bigger tits than her, and that's what their rivalry is all about, is that she's got big tits and she doesn't like her because she's got big tits.
Well, she fancies the guy that
80s
fancies
stud guy.
Elvira.
Well,
doesn't
that's it. Did she fancy him, or are they saying it? It's weird. It's
No, because
weird.
the guy says you've got competition.
I think they were referring to the breasts when they said.
I think it kind of meant everything.
So to try and win the town back over, she invites all the kids from town to come and see one of her horror shows when they've got like Killer Tomatoes on. But the woman with apparently larger tits comes in and then tips tar and feathers all over her and ruins the big performance.
Yeah.
That whole performance bit when she does the flash dance thing.
That was fucking mad.
That made me laugh.
So obviously a fucking stunt double.
Yeah, but I think that was the gag.
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
it? So
of
when
course.
she was like backflipping and she just saw her face like that, and that was really funny.
When the tar actually hits her, you see like some sort of polystyrene mannequin like snap in half and then quickly cut away. It's like somebody fucking put lipstick on, kissed this mannequin, stuck a wig on it. It's pretty shit. If you catch it in the right place, it's pretty poor.
Well, I'm sure we will be showing that clip now to see if you're telling the truth.
Did you know that the person who did the dance in Flashdance was a man?
Oh, I did know that. The leg bit. Yeah.
So anyways, that's just the other weird thing is this stud, she's laying on pretty thick with him and he's like not getting it. It's like
No, when he's thick.
he's thick as shit.
See, that confused the fuck out of me. That guy, she almost says like, I'm free now, or, do you want to spend the night or something? And he's like, that'd be great. And then fucks off.
He just goes off.
And then later in the film, it says that in the explanation as to her being left with her uncle, and then said you were left with a familiar. I was like, motherfucker. That bloke is a familiar.
What, the thick guy?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that's why he kept like shunning her and not turning up or not getting with her. And I made a fucking note thinking like, yeah, it was this many minutes into the film when I realised I was so smart. And yeah, not a fucking sniff of it.
No.
He's just a dumbass. I didn't realise that.
Well, there's that scene later on as well, isn't there, when they're sat on the sofa and she's basically all over him, and he's
That's what I mean. He's pulling away.
He's
actively pulling away. So that's why I thought, right, he's assigned to protect her, and he's doing it in human form.
Maybe he's just a real gentleman.
Maybe. I
Not
think
like
they were
these
trying to
tit-grabbing
insinuate.
Hoodlums.
He's no Christopher Reeve in Somewhere in Time.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So he's not picking up much of the hints, and they're on the sofa.
So then she's like, oh, I know, I'll go make her some dinner. And so finds this recipe book, goes in the kitchen and finds all this weird shit, which is like fucking mad that she would get all this stuff out of a cupboard and...
Worms.
And completely disregards the actual fucking recipe. Puts the right things in, but just everything in every jar.
And then accidentally creates this fucking monster that's like... it looks like the emo hawk.
This is when this film really picked up, though, because I thought she ends up putting like nachos and fucking cheese whiz in it, doesn't she, as well? And then when she opens it, and this sort of like puppet thing comes out, but it's good. It was fun, that. I was like, oh, now we're getting somewhere.
But stupid guy was kind of like, when they managed to trap it back in the pot, he was just like, okay, now what do we do with it? Are you not fucking bothered that there's a fucking monster just come out of that pot?
Well, he was a plumber. I think that was the whole thing. He was so nondescript, wasn't he? There was no character to him.
I just thought they could have built a relationship, whatever, but it was just swept under the carpet. There's a monster in the house.
So then she goes up to the attic and then she finds a letter from her auntie. It's just like some fucking weird vision of a baby with makeup on. It was really disturbing.
That was brilliant.
That was like disturbing.
That was Elvira when she was a kid. That's what she's always looked like. Is like that.
And the thing is, as well, in that era, that was probably actually painted on a kid.
It was a baby, wasn't it?
It was freaky.
I thought that was quite funny.
It was freaky.
And that baby looked like fucking Dolly Parton.
That was the gag.
So anyway, then she goes out the next day and she spikes the local neighbourhood watch party or whatever it was with, it's like fucking Valium and pills or something.
Well, it was supposed to be the same thing, wasn't it? She made the same potion again, so she was hoping that they would come along, open it, and then another monster would come out.
Right, but she changed the ingredients.
Yeah, she did say though, didn't she, that she had to alter the recipe because she couldn't find... She was just lobbing shit in.
Well, in a second, she was trying to make that demon again, wasn't she? And then, but it didn't happen, so she's like, oh, I'm a bit gutted, and then they start eating it all. But yeah, it does basically make them have an orgy.
Yeah,
like that Edie McClurg, oh my god. I don't know if she says, is this space taken or is this face taken?
Is this face taken, I think.
And then straddles a guy and lifts up her skirt. It's like, oh, you don't want to see that.
That's a whole lot of woman, that is, isn't it?
Show us your curlers.
Christ. Wow.
During that party, it turns out that her rival with the big tits is actually wearing fake tits.
Yes.
And she had no tits.
Yes, that was very strange. I think she wanted to date that guy. So how long did she think she could keep this fake tit facade going? Mind you, he was that thick.
He wouldn't have
probably
noticed.
wouldn't have noticed, no.
And they were quite 50s as well, weren't they? There was that bit where she was hiding in that room and you can see just the bottom of the pink tips of her high heels, and then these two, like, honestly, they were kind of like Babs Windsor kind of carry-on film style boobs.
It was a pointy pair, wasn't it?
Yeah, poking through some curtains. It was like, bloody hell.
Not like Elvira's curvy
voluptuous body.
Yeah, so
she did punch that woman out of her top.
What?
She flew out of her top.
That's one hell of a fucking punch, that is, isn't it?
While all of this subplot is going on, her uncle's like manoeuvring to get hold of this recipe book.
He actually casts a spell without the book, doesn't he, though?
Well, I think he's kind of like a wizard already or something.
He is, yes.
Do you know what I mean?
He doesn't really pull out his ace until he gets going, because, he offers her money and then he offers to give her more money until he starts doing that shit in the cellar. And that lift, by the way, that's pretty cool, behind the bookshelf and having a lift going down, that was alright. He doesn't use any spells or anything until...
He needs to.
Yeah.
They should have had more magic from the beginning.
Yeah.
His
superpower before that was anger.
It's like,
no! Give me the book!
That's like yours.
And funny eyes.
Magic eyes.
So then the townspeople...
They're really embarrassed they've had an orgy, aren't they?
They're embarrassed and they arrest her for witchcraft.
I think we could have seen more of that orgy, to be honest. I don't think anyone
wanted to see more of that orgy.
Well, no, I thought it was going to go a little bit...
It was a very, very beige town, wasn't it?
It was, but I thought the film's been so racy that I thought, well, maybe that orgy... And I'm not talking about, anything too...
Full penetration.
Your grandma's vagina, and there's a dick going into it. What the fuck?
Just a full-on hardcore porn, for the last hour. Just Elvira doing wacky stuff in the background.
Real gross.
No, some real gross version of Cocoon. Just like real, oh my god, because that happened in Cocoon.
You're seeing shafts. You're seeing sack tapping.
Murph just wanted heavy petting.
Yeah, no, I think they could have got a bit more humour out of it. I wasn't expecting anything like that.
So yeah, she's arrested for witchcraft, and then the local kids try and break her out because at like midnight or some shit they're going to burn her at the stake.
Yes, yeah.
Bizarrely,
yeah.
That's when you find out the dog is the familiar and he can shapeshift because he turns into a mouse.
He does,
first of all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, to save her, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then into the Rottweiler after, doesn't he?
But her friend's trying to save her. They fuck up in a real shit way.
They cut into the wrong cell and get themselves caught in jail.
That's unlucky, isn't it? Breaking into jail.
It's really brushed off. I think the jail's convenient. pregnant, and then that's it.
That's when she realises like her dreams have been leading her to the fact that she's always had the power because of the ring that she had when she was taken to the orphanage. So she puts her hand up and they get struck by lightning. It starts a thunderstorm which puts the fire out.
Yeah. She needed to localise the rainstorm.
How big a rainstorm do you think it would take to put a fire that size out?
And bear in mind,
we've got a short burst monsoon.
She was actually stuck on top of the fire whilst this was happening, so she didn't have a lot of time.
No.
So she needed to be super shit hot with getting that rain down onto that fire.
Speaking of fire, she was burnt when she was younger. She had like 35 degree burns all over her body. Yeah.
She said that she only ever shows her good bits or something, apparently.
They are great. They're great bits as well. Yeah, because she finds out that she's a witch, and I guess that's why she looks the way she does and does what she does. That's why I kind of read into it.
Yeah.
And then the 80s stud comes up.
No, you've got the fucking uncle then. He comes in and he's like a fucking monster all of a sudden.
This is brilliant.
He's like a fucking zombie or Frankenstein or something.
Well, the magic is like fucking taking him over, isn't it?
Yeah.
The recipe book's like, this is where it got awesome. I really enjoyed
this is a bit. I don't know if I was starting to fall asleep here or what.
I've got a vague. This is the thing.
What's going on here?
I might have actually closed my eyes on that bit. I genuinely don't remember him doing that.
Then she's like cuts his hand off, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yes, that bit I saw.
She also throws her shoe so hard
it sticks in his head.
It gets stuck in his skull.
It
penetrates his skull.
Yeah.
I mean, that is some fucking force. Not only did she punch a woman out of her top, she even managed to impale a chap with a fucking stiletto.
And then suddenly she comes out of like somewhere with like a fucking machine gun and a missile launcher.
She got a Rambo fucking
That's
band
it. Like briefly for like 5 or 10 seconds.
And then just walks off from after shooting the guy point blank with like what looks like a fucking grenade launcher, and she just strolls off.
They could have foreshadowed that a little bit better, but this whole end scene, I really enjoyed this. The special effectsy bits I get, so the bits I thought, oh man, there should have been more of that. There should have been more of that supernatural action stuff. I think because she was quite funny in that,
because it was tonally uneven throughout. You couldn't really get invested in any type of feel to it because it's like, oh, what's going on now? I don't really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So during that battle, then she has to break open a gate with her tits as well.
Yeah. This was some of the best. I think her character worked better when she was put under those sort of scenes because she reminded me a bit of Ash from Evil Dead. Because she had that, oh, wait a minute, whoa, it's all like, she wasn't like really a heroine or anything. She was with a bit with the gun and that. She was just sort of bumbling her way sort of through it and sort of making wisecracks. And I thought that's when she actually worked better as a character.
I think though it was just because there was a little bit of a story going on in the second part, wasn't there, really? Because the first sort of 45 minutes
flimsy
was nothing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you started to get the right, okay, he wants the book because he's a warlock, then it started to get a little bit better.
So they're fighting and the house burns down. What happens to the guy? Is he amongst the flames or something? I can't fucking remember.
The uncle.
I
think he was stuck in the fire.
I think
I literally watched this.
Everyone fell asleep, I think.
I mean, I watched it yesterday.
I watched it yesterday.
I watched it Tuesday.
I watched it in 2 sittings. The first time I watched it, I had a couple of bottles of wine with the wife, and I was like literally hypnotised by the boobs. I was not concentrating on it, and so I had to come back and watch it again. I was so flabbergasted by her chest in this that I found myself just staring at it and not listening. So I had to go back and watch it again.
I know he dies, and I can't not think what it is. The guy comes up and goes, I need you to sign some papers. Now he's gone. Maybe something fell on him, I can't remember, but something happened that was quite definitive.
None of us can remember at the end of the film.
That might not be a bad thing.
Anyway, she burns her house down.
Something happens, the guy dies.
The guy dies.
And then town forgives her, and she's like toast to the town, and everyone loves her. And then
Patty comes up and apologises for setting her on fire. I don't know if I could forgive and forget as quickly as she did.
You couldn't have it in your heart to...
Well, given time, but the same evening be like, sorry about that. It's like, oh, it's okay. Like,
Very quick turnaround from wanting to burn someone alive to being welcoming them with a casserole.
So then she's got the assets then to start her Vegas show, where she does the most incredible titty tassel act. It's like, fucking hell.
Well, she does that after she's done the worst rap.
I'm woman enough to get ready. I'm gonna do my stuff.
I forgot it. There is a rap. I forgot.
The rap's fucking terrible. That musical number's terrible, apart from the titty tassel.
But the thing tassel though was like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a real show.
That's what I call a fucking show.
It must be quite a skill twirling those nipple
It wasn't in the
She did a
script.
fucking great job at it.
It wasn't in the script, I don't think. And she learned how to do that when she did a Vegas show, and it was a skill she had, and she used to do it. And then in the film, I think they decided to add it because she could do
She's
it.
like this. She's like, and she's like, she knows it's good. She's like,
It's amazing. One side's going, while the other's not going, and then they can get the other side going, and then they just like go different directions, and like, fair play.
But here's the thing, I'm happy for her, but this was her dream. A crusade to be like.
If you could do that at Vegas, you would, Tab. Imagine Tab be doing that at Vegas.
I'm sure there's a market for it.
A dream was to spin nipple tassels. All right, okay. I was expecting a show.
That was a show.
It was a bit shit, that show.
That bit wasn't.
No, that bit was good, but
Also-
I needed more.
They like superimposed her face. Do you know when she started doing her final show dance and all that sort of stuff? And it's just a close up of her face. If you
Is that not just lighting?
No.
Is it? You're
No,
she's
no,
wearing
no,
that
no.
black cloak?
Refuses to believe it's light.
What's it called? Is it Pepper's Ghost?
Oh,
or
where the
whatever it's
mirror?
called?
Where
Yeah,
the-
the mirror thing. So it's like a body, but it's like a hologram of her face.
You know about when she was stood with like a black cloak that was like spiky
I
at the
think
back?
so,
Because I
yes.
actually thought her head doesn't look like it belongs on her body.
Then
I
you can
thought
see
that,
her
but-
face fucking moving when her body wasn't moving. It's
I
like-
think I rationalised it because I think she was stood behind something or something was above her.
I'm not having it, Top.
I don't want
It's a
it.
fucking hologram.
It's
A
interesting.
weird place to put a hologram.
I'm going to say undecided, yeah, but I don't know why, but it's really weird because
But that
she's.
wasn't the first hologram. Because earlier on there was a scene where they redid her face as a hologram. I swear it was.
Were you extremely high when you watched it?
I was very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 pages of
Fucking
notes.
holograms,
I
man.
fucking know what I saw.
You stick with it, Al.
Right, so we have the Vegas routine, and it's all right. But the tassel bit's great.
Yes.
It's fucking terrible Vegas act, though. I mean,
Apart
it's
from the
interesting.
tassels.
It's interesting that she can do that.
It's
That's
no-
good, but
it's
I
no
mean,
Siegfried and Roy like.
no wonder they wanted her to half pay for it. It's got like I don't know. I don't think it's got
Not a
legs,
fan.
man.
You wanted more. So that's the end, isn't it? That's when it
That's it.
finishes.
Yeah.
That finishes, yeah.
Yeah, that was that.
Al, give us a bit of a rendition of the Elvira song that you were singing earlier.
Elvira, my heart's on fire for Elvira.
That was in film to me.
No, that wasn't in the film.
That wasn't in the
It's
film.
just a song.
He wrote it.
Some bonus
Yeah.
material.
It's just a song with the. It's called Elvira.
I see.
I
It's got
don't even know if it's about Elvira.
It's got to be about the film, doesn't it?
I mean, well, for the purposes of this, we will say yes.
It seems to me like it should have come from the early 80s rather than 88.
Yes.
It feels like if it was 83 around like Porky's time or something, you'd be like, oh well, yeah, alright, get away with it a bit more. 88 seems a bit like you should have known fucking better.
It's a good shape. That pretty much sums up how I felt about it, really. I think it felt like they were using earlier humour in a film that could have been better. I couldn't tell whether the acting was ironically crap. I don't know whether I'm watching a comedy
It's not a comedy.
or a comedy about a comedy.
It's very difficult to understand what was happening.
Because, yeah.
Throughout a lot of it. If it was a comedy, there wasn't a great deal of comedy in there to keep it going. Like, personally, I think the second half of it was a lot better once they started getting all of the sort of like witchcraft thing and it
Yeah.
actually had a little bit of a plot. It felt like a sketch show. It looked really fucking cheap as well. It just looked
That
so
house,
cheap.
when
like-
it said your house is over there, and it turned to that house, I was like, they must have that set and wheel it out for
Yeah.
that and every other kind
like the
of.
Munsters
It's a
house.
house
Well,
on
she's,
the...
she's actually going to be in the new Monsters film when it comes
Yes,
out.
she
Oh,
is.
is she?
Yeah.
She's in the 70s now, isn't she? Well, the house, though, is one of the ones from the Universal lot, isn't it? It's one of the ones that would have been in loads of things. I think they filmed most of it on there. It is tonally uneven, but I didn't mind that so much. I think it should have had way more supernatural stuff the whole way through. I would be really fascinated to see what Tim Burton would have done with it, because he probably would have made it way more stylised the whole way
Yeah.
through and probably got away with a lot of it a bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair exchange though, doing Beetlejuice.
There's that thing in there, if you've got a litre of shit and a litre of milk and you put the litre of shit into the litre of milk, you've just got 2 litres of shit. Like, so you could get Tim Burton, but I mean, I don't really think it would make much of a difference. You could have fucking Spielberg in there and he probably would.
I think the good thing Tim Burton does with characters is he makes everybody who isn't essential more of a Lego figure who just moves around. Like Edward Scissorhands, all the families are very, all the dads mow the lawn at the same time.
Yes, he really
and
would have pushed that
he would have gone for
distinction
a,
between...
yeah, and he would have focused more on making Elvira a sort of slinkier kind of, like, I think he would have brought something quite
You can
interesting.
imagine
to
the
it.
like Edward Scissorhands sort of aesthetic of the suburban life there, and then Elvira in the middle of it, and that would have just been funny in itself.
Yeah, I'm
Totally
copying
seeing it.
Edward Scissorhands isn't exactly what I mean, but you know what I'm saying. It's like, because he does try to make each film isn't obviously his, but there are sort of certain elements that I think.
I think Tim Burton made the right decision in
Yeah.
fobbing this film
He
off
didn't
and
fob it, he couldn't do it.
and doing Beetlejuice.
I do think though this film would improve on multiple viewings. experience, and I do think I can see why it's a cult classic.
I might watch it a couple more times myself.
But no, I bet you sometimes which are delivered a bit shit probably are even funnier when you watch them a few times round.
There are some funny things in there. There are some funny bits in it. Like there is some real good sort of like one-liners and stuff in there. But I don't know, it was few and far between. It was so sort of in the middle of being a comedy and a horror, or like, I don't know, it was just bizarre. It was bizarre.
There was that bit where she goes to see the guy at the movie theatre, and I can't remember what the film was called, but basically there was a word obscured and it just spelled UCK, and you were like, oh, it says fuck, but it doesn't. It's like, well, yeah, that's quite funny. And then she goes up a ladder and did something I didn't expect. She brings down an E but covers the bottom part of it, and then does spell out the word fuck. It was just like the rest of the film.
Spelling gag. You like that bit? You like a letter gag.
It was a double bluff. It got me. I thought it was innuendo, and then they made it happen.
All of it was ham-fisted.
But that's
it?
the thing. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That is kind of like metaphorical for the film for me. Is it a comedy? Is it not a comedy? Is it slapstick? Is it not slapstick?
It's not the comedy.
I don't know. It was kind of like this woman was riding high on what she did, and somebody threw a load of money at her to see if it could work.
Obviously,
well, no, actually, it was her production company, I think.
Yeah, she was the driving force behind it, wasn't she?
Well, she had a big following.
But
though,
of course.
It was a bit of a punt, wasn't it? It was like.
But I think like if it had been like a director like Tim Burton or something, like you said, he would have had their stamp on it. Whereas I think she guided the whole thing. You know, it was her vision, wasn't it?
Which might explain why it's confused.
Well, that's why I feel like the whole film. There's a girl who is quite fit, and she thinks she's really funny, and because she's fit, everyone fucking laughs at her. And the more they laugh, the more she's like, oh, I'm real funny, because she thinks they're laughing at jokes. They're not laughing, they laugh because she's fit, and that's what blokes do when they just laugh at girls' jokes when they fancy them. So I think that's what this whole production has been a little bit, is the metaphor for that, and it's all gone like...
Yeah, I do agree, but I do see why it's got a cult following. I bet if you watched it when you were like 10 or something, you would probably you'd be able to get
I would have been sexually active for longer, I think, if I watched that when I was 10.
But I think you would have like grown up to think, oh yeah, this is a massive classic, because like you said, you wouldn't pick up on the fact that it is ham-fisted and it is so on the nose. A lot of it would be probably the first time you'd ever heard gags like that. A bit like Carry On, do you know what I mean? If you saw it like when you were a kid, you're probably like, oh yeah, and I think it would have probably aged better. But I do think it would improve. I think there's probably a lot of quotable bits out of it the more you watch it.
We haven't mentioned the music, because the music was fucking dreadful throughout the entire thing. It was like an electronic saxophone. There was just some really weird shit. They did have a couple of tunes in there, actually, like proper tunes.
Yeah.
But for most of it, it was just like, you know, background sort of like elevator music, but it was so bizarre.
It was definitely low budget, wasn't it? I mean, the special effects weren't too bad.
Yeah, they were very sort of... Well, no, they were shit.
But they got away with it all being a bit crap, because I think it's all supposed to be a bit crap.
That's the thing, is like, just every time it's a bit shit, it's excusable, because it's a B-movie hostess
making a B-movie.
Making a B-movie.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, shit, this film can do whatever it wants.
It needed to push it more in that direction, I think,
and
have a bit more of an idea. It was quite meandering, wasn't it?
The first half was, yeah. I think if they'd established a bit more of a plot line and a story in the first half, it would have been better.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, with the storyline, it was the producers that requested that those kids were in it, the ones who helped fix up our house, because they were worried there wasn't enough to attract a young audience. So they had to change the script, and loads of scenes with all the other characters got cut to fit these kids in. So perhaps the reason it does feel so meandering at the beginning...
Studio interference.
Yeah, studio meddling, yeah.
She was 37 in this.
She's 70 now.
She's 70 now, and she is looking good for 70 as well.
She's aged well.
I bet she's got a fair bit of makeup on.
I bet up close she's not quite as good, but better than your average 70-year-old.
Yeah. But
she's still got an incredible set of bangers for 70.
I mean, yeah, she's absolutely smoking, isn't she?
Yeah.
So she's a phenomenal figure of a lady. Right, should we get to scores then? So I thought, it was slow the first half, but I thought the second half really picked up. I really come to quite find the character quite endearing in the way that she was a bit shit, and I thought I quite liked that in the end, and I thought it would sort of quite work for her. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
I'm doing the same thing. I'd already had that figure in my head. It was alright, it was watchable, but I just found myself concentrating and still not knowing what was really going on in patches, and it was entertaining in places, and I found bits of it funny that maybe was supposed to be, some of it maybe not supposed to be, but coming towards the end I didn't really find myself knowing enough to want it to end a certain way. I just kind of wanted it to end. So yeah, a strong and generous 6.5 from me. Alan.
Oh man. So watching this has actually sort of made me reevaluate what I would probably have given Enemy Mine last week.
What did you give Enemy Mine?
4.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Because I thought...
You've been a twat there, I reckon.
But anyway, so watching this, I was just like, can I give this a 4? Is this on the same level as Enemy Mine? and it isn't. It's worse. So production is terrible. The acting is terrible. The music's terrible. There's some funny bits in it. Yeah, I laughed at a couple of things, although I was super fucking high, so I would have probably laughed at anything. But yeah, there was a couple of funny bits in there. But I've got to give it a 4 because it was just poor, man.
Would you change your Enemy Mine score?
I would probably give Enemy Mine like 5.5. Yeah.
Ooh.
Is that official or not?
Well, I mean,
I think when we top this up at the end,
I'm going to make some kind of scoreboard.
Yeah, this should be recognised.
Because I can't give it the same score as Enemy Mine. It was just so bad.
So you say it a 4?
Yeah, and I mean that's being generous, but only because there was a couple of bits that made me laugh.
I'm being really generous, to be fair, so I can get on board with that as a film.
Go on then, Lee. Your film, your pick.
Well, my main motto in life is stick to what you know, and one of the first times ever I thought, I'm going to go for something different because I've never seen this before and I'm going to use this opportunity to try something different, and this is why I don't try new things, because of shit like this. But I chose it because I was thinking with my dick.
You need to stop thinking with your dick. You have to be on your toes.
So my dick has betrayed me again. So the film wasn't great, although there was a lot of tits in it.
There was.
So I think if there wasn't any tits in it, I would give it a 5 or a 4.5. But because of the tits,
you're giving it a 10.
Because of the tits, I'm going to give it a 5.5.
5.5. Yeah.
Extra point for the...
2 extra points.
Whee! But yeah, it does have a big cult following, so if you're a big fan, let us know in the comments why we are totally wrong in our estimation of Elvira. I still think it's okay and it's worth a watch. Okay,
it's worth a watch, it's just not worth a rewatch for me. But give it a look.
Yeah. Alright, so the next person up was Alan, and Alan, last week you were given the year of 1983.
I was indeed. Whoa. Yes.
Crunch time to find out what he's picked.
Yeah. So
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so there was a couple of decent ones, and like probably 2 of my favourite films were in that year as well. But I'm just going to go with an absolute banger. So like, you need to get your fucking laughing pants on because it's going to be National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yes, awesome. Nice pick. Right, so that leaves us to pick who's going to be picking next week. So we've only got 2 years left now, and those years are 1981 and 1984. Whichever one you end up with, Tom, I'm going to end up with the other one for the following week. Let me get a random number generator. Right, okay.
Crank it up.
No, it's not going to be that random. Well, it's 50.
1984.
1984.
Ooh, interesting.
A bumper year that was as well. That is a very,
I can think of a really good film in that year.
There's lots of really good films in that year. So yeah, thank you for listening to our review of Elvira. Tune in next week where we'll be watching National Lampoon's Vacation. And yeah, you'll get to see what Tarby picked from 1984. Let us know what you would pick.
I'm going to get money.
You're going to get what?
Money.
Money?
Money.
Oh, money.
See ya.
Bye.
Elvira!